The night had been quiet. Too quiet for a town like Cedar Ridge. Streetlights painted long, lonely shadows across the cul-de-sac, and the sound of sprinklers clicking in the neighbor's yard was the only thing breaking the stillness. My house sat at the end of the street, modest but sturdy, its porch light burning like a sentinel in the dark. Inside, silence reigned, but it was not the silence of emptiness. A pair of amber eyes glowed faintly from the living room, watching. My Belgian Malinois, Shadow, lay on his belly near the front door, ears pricked, muscles coiled like springs. To anyone else, he was a loyal family dog. To me, he was a partner, trained for situations just like the one about to unfold. Because tonight, someone was coming. Earlier that day, I'd had another run-in with Karen Whitmore, the self-appointed dictator of our HOA. She had knocked on my door with her usual clipboard in hand, lips pursed, sunglasses perched on her head like a crown. "Ethan Cross," she had said, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. "Your lawn is a quarter-inch too high. And your truck parked in the driveway again. That's a violation." I'd crossed my arms and leaned against the doorframe. "Karen, it rained for 3 days straight. I couldn't mow even if I wanted to. And my truck's been in the driveway for years. It's not hurting anybody." "Rules are rules," she'd snapped. "If you don't comply, the HOA board will have no choice but to fine you." Again. I'd smiled, not kindly. "Go ahead and fine me. I'll see you in court, just like last time." You remember how that went. The memory had made her face flush scarlet. She'd spun on her heel and stormed off, muttering something about people like me ruining the neighborhood. I thought that was the end of it. It wasn't. At precisely 9:47 p.m., a dark figure crept up my porch steps. The security camera above my door caught her clearly. Karen, dressed in black sweatpants and a hoodie, her blonde hair tied back tight. She glanced up and down the street, then pulled something from her pocket, a slim piece of metal. She started working my lock. Shadow rose silently, tail stiff, body tense. The door clicked open. Karen eased it inward, stepping inside like she owned the place. That's when the growl started, low, deep, and unmistakable. Karen froze. Shadow emerged from the darkness, head low, teeth bared. His hackles stood up like a ridge of knives. "Oh my God," Karen whispered, backing up a step. "Nice doggy." But Shadow wasn't a doggy. He was a canine trained for military work before I adopted him after leaving the service. And right now, he was following his training to the letter: protect the house, protect his partner. Karen fumbled for the door handle, but she'd already shut it behind her, and panic made her hands clumsy. Shadow advanced, barking once, loud enough to rattle the windows. Karen screamed. I got the alert on my phone while I was still at the grocery store. The security app buzzed and showed me the live feed, Karen trapped in my entryway, Shadow holding her at bay. My first thought wasn't even anger, it was disbelief. She actually broke in. I threw the groceries in the passenger seat, floored the accelerator, and was home in under 6 minutes. When I pulled into the driveway, Karen's voice was shrieking from inside. "Call him off! Call him off!" I unlocked the door and stepped in, calm but cold. Shadow. Guard. Shadow stayed where he was, a living wall between Karen and the rest of the house. "What the hell are you doing in my house, Karen?" I asked. She was pale, sweating, and shaking, but still tried to put on that HOA superiority. I saw something suspicious. I was just checking to make sure everything was okay." "By picking my lock?" She swallowed hard. I took a step closer. "You've been harassing me for months over the most petty violations you can dream up. But this," I pointed to the door. "This is breaking and entering. And you're lucky Shadow didn't take your arm off." Her eyes flicked nervously to the Malinois, who was still glaring at her like she was prey. "Ethan, let's be reasonable," she said, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I'm sure we can handle this without calling the police." "Oh, we're definitely calling the police," I said. I pulled out my phone and dialed. Karen's face drained of color. "You can't. This will ruin me. You should have thought about that before you came into my house. 5 minutes later, 2 Cedar Ridge police officers were standing in my foyer. Officer Martinez took my statement while his partner kept Karen seated on the couch, Shadow sitting between them like a silent witness. You've got video of the entry? Martinez asked. Security cameras. Clear as day. Good. That makes this easy. Karen started crying then, big dramatic sobs. Please, I was just trying to make sure the neighborhood was safe. Ethan's always been so hostile, he's dangerous. Martinez raised an eyebrow. Dangerous? Looks to me like he handled this pretty professionally. He turned back to me. You want to press charges? I looked at Karen, who had stopped crying just long enough to glare at me like she still thought she was in control. Absolutely, I said. Martinez nodded. All right. Ma'am, you're under arrest for criminal trespass and attempted burglary. Karen's jaw dropped. Burglary? I didn't steal anything. You don't have to, Martinez said. Breaking in is enough. They cuffed her right there in my living room, and Shadow finally relaxed, tail wagging as if to say, mission accomplished. But as they led Karen out to the squad car, I had a strange feeling in my gut. Something told me this wasn't over. The next morning, the neighborhood was buzzing. When I stepped out to grab the mail, I could feel the eyes watching me through curtains and over hedges. Word had spread faster than wildfire. Karen Whitmore, the self-proclaimed queen of Cedar Ridge HOA, had been arrested, and I was the one who made it happen. Shadow trotted beside me, tail swishing like he owned the street. You're a celebrity now, buddy, I muttered. But the small-town satisfaction of putting Karen in her place didn't last long. By noon, my phone rang, a number I didn't recognize. This is Officer Martinez, the voice said. Just wanted to give you a heads up, Karen made bail this morning. I felt my stomach tighten. That was fast. Judge thought she wasn't a flight risk, he said. But listen, if she comes near your property again, call us right away. We've flagged your address for priority response. Good to know. When I hung up, Shadow tilted his head, sensing my mood. Yeah, I said. She's not done. I was right. 2 hours later, there was a knock on my door. Not a normal knock, the kind that sounds like the person thinks they have a legal right to be there. I opened it to find 3 people standing on my porch, Greg Langston, the HOA president, flanked by 2 board members. Ethan, Greg said, his voice measured, we need to discuss last night's situation. Not interested. Greg frowned. This affects the community. Karen has been an integral part of the HOA for 8 years. The board feels your actions were. My actions? I stepped out onto the porch, forcing him back a step. She broke into my house, Greg. That's not a neighborhood dispute, that's a felony. One of the board members, a woman named Linda, crossed her arms. Karen says she had reason to believe your property was unsafe. She claims you've been leaving dangerous tools out in your yard. I actually laughed. What? The only thing I leave in my yard is a garden hose. Greg held up a piece of paper, a formal HOA complaint form. The board is considering a vote to fine you for. You try that, I said, my voice hardening. And I'll sue the board for harassment. I have security footage of everything that happened last night, including her picking my lock. You really want that played in court? Greg shifted uncomfortably. We're just trying to keep the peace, Ethan. Then start by reining in Karen. I closed the door before he could reply. That night, things escalated. At 11:15 p.m., Shadow's ears shot up and he growled, low and dangerous. I checked the security feed on my phone. Karen's car was idling across the street. I turned off the lights, grabbed my phone, and recorded from the window as she got out, marched up to my property line, and started taking pictures of my house. Then she walked over to my truck and crouched by the front bumper like she was planting something. Oh no, you don't, I muttered. I flung the door open. Karen! She froze, caught in the act, then tried to play innocent. Oh, Ethan. I was just documenting another violation. Step away from my truck. She smirked. Or what? You'll call your attack dog on me again? Shadow came to stand beside me, his presence alone enough to make her think twice. This is harassment, I said, holding up my phone. And now I've got it on video. You're already on bail, you really want to push your luck? Karen's mask of control cracked for just a second. I saw the hatred in her eyes. You think you can humiliate me, she hissed. You won't win, Ethan. I own this neighborhood. Then she stormed back to her car and sped off. By morning, the retaliation had begun. I woke to find a bright orange notice taped to my door. Notice of HOA violation. Failure to maintain acceptable lawn height. Unauthorized parking of oversized vehicle. Excessive noise disturbance reported by multiple neighbors. I tore it down and crumpled it in my fist. She's trying to bury us in fines, I said. Shadow barked once, as if in agreement. That afternoon, I decided to hit back. I took the security footage, both from the night of the break-in and from her skulking around my truck, and put together a neat file. Then I drove to the police station and handed it over. Officer Martinez reviewed the clips, whistled low, and shook his head. This is good, he said. This shows she's violating her bail conditions. Judge isn't going to like this. When can we act? I asked. Soon, he said. Give us a day to get the warrant. I left feeling better until I got home and saw what was waiting for me. Someone had spray-painted HOA scum across my garage door. I stood there for a long time, fists clenched, chest burning with anger. This wasn't just Karen anymore. She'd rallied others to her side. This was war. That night, I didn't sleep. Shadow paced the house, restless, picking up on my mood. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the security feeds on my tablet, waiting for something to happen. At 2:43 a.m., it did. A shadow moved near my back gate. I froze, then zoomed the camera. Karen. This time, she wasn't alone. Two men were with her, I didn't recognize them. One carried a crowbar. Shadow growled, a sound so deep it vibrated in my chest. I stood up slowly. All right, buddy, I whispered. Looks like tonight's the night. I reached for my phone, ready to call 911, but stopped. Because this time, I wanted them caught in the act. And Shadow was more than ready. The moment Karen and her two friends stepped through my back gate, Shadow's entire body transformed. The calm, watchful partner I knew was gone, replaced by a coiled spring of fury and focus. His lips peeled back, a deep rumble building in his chest. Stay, I whispered. Shadow froze, every muscle trembling. I tapped my phone screen and silently activated the recording feed on all my cameras. Then I dialed 911, keeping my voice low. This is Ethan Cross, 412, Westbrook Lane. 3 suspects just entered my property through the back gate. One is armed with a crowbar. I have security footage. I'm inside with my dog. Send units now. Officers are en route, the dispatcher replied. I set the phone down, heart pounding, and waited. The 3 intruders crept up my backyard, whispering. Karen's voice was shrill, barely controlled. Just slash the tires and break a window. He'll think twice before humiliating me again. One of the men, tall, broad-shouldered, face hidden under a hoodie, shook his head. This is crazy, Karen. If we get caught. We won't get caught, she hissed. Do it. They moved toward my truck, but then Karen spotted the side door to my garage. Better idea, she said. Let's go inside. The man with the crowbar jammed it between the door and frame and pried. The door popped open with a metallic screech. That was the sound that broke Shadow's patience. I pointed to the door and gave a single, sharp command. Shadow, take. The Malinois launched forward like a missile. He hit the man with the crowbar before he even stepped fully inside, knocking him backward into the grass. The guy screamed as Shadow clamped onto his arm, holding him down with a force that would have made any police K9 handler proud. Karen shrieked. "Get him off! Get him off! Shadow, guard!" I barked. Shadow shifted from attack to hold, pinning the man but not letting go, a deep growl rumbling from his throat. I stepped into the garage doorway, flashlight beam cutting across their shocked faces. "You just committed felony trespassing while out on bail, Karen," I said, voice like ice. "And your friend just broke into my garage with a weapon. Congratulations, you've both just made this a felony burglary case." Karen's face was pale, her bravado cracking. "We weren't going to take anything. You just got caught," I said. I could already hear the distant wail of sirens. The other man took off running, but he didn't make it far. 2 police cruisers screeched to a stop out front, officers pouring out with flashlights and weapons drawn. "Hands where we can see them," one shouted. Karen raised her hands, sobbing now. I called Shadow back with a sharp whistle. He released the man on the ground but stayed between me and the intruders, hackles still high. Within seconds, the officers had everyone on their knees, hands cuffed behind their backs. Officer Martinez strode up, shaking his head. Well, Karen. Guess you just violated your bail conditions in the most spectacular way possible." She made me do it," the man with the crowbar shouted. "She said we were just gonna scare the guy." Karen's head whipped toward him. "You were the one who broke the door." "Save it," Martinez said, waving to his partner. "Get them both in the car." Karen tried one last time, twisting to look at me as they hauled her away. "You can't do this to me. I am this neighborhood. They'll side with me." I crossed my arms. Not after they see the footage. The next week was chaos: HOA meetings, emergency votes, neighbors gossiping at every corner. But this time, the board wasn't protecting Karen. Greg Langston himself came to my door, looking 10 years older than he had last week. "Ethan," he said, "the board has voted unanimously to remove Karen from her position and ban her from all HOA activities effective immediately. We owe you an apology." None of us realized how far she'd gone. I nodded, not entirely satisfied but glad it was over. Karen, I later learned, was charged with criminal trespassing, attempted burglary, conspiracy, and violation of bail. The judge revoked her bond and ordered her held until trial. The 2 men she brought with her were facing charges of their own. The neighborhood breathed a collective sigh of relief. That Friday, I finally had a quiet night. I grilled burgers on the back patio while Shadow lounged at my feet, ears twitching but finally relaxed. I looked down at him and smiled. "You did good, partner." He thumped his tail once and let out a content huff, as if to say, all in a day's work. For the first time in weeks, I felt the tension ease from my shoulders. Karen was gone, the neighborhood was quiet, and my home, my peace, was finally mine again. But as I sipped my beer and watched the sunset burn orange over Cedar Ridge, one thought stayed with me. Some battles you win in court. Others you win because your best friend has 4 legs, a steel jaw, and a heart that beats for you. And I wouldn't trade that for anything.